All right, today everyone, we're going to talk about buckets and keeping your food in them. How do you bucket your food? Sometimes it's called bucketing, but you're taking your food, your grains, your oats, different things that you've gotten in bulk probably, and you're putting it in buckets to preserve it so it'll last a really long time. There are several different ways to do it. We're going to talk about a couple of those here. Yeah, it's going to be fun. But our goal is to preserve our food. So I have here 25 pounds of millet that I'm going to be showing you how I'm going to preserve it today. And it's really pretty simple, but I can't keep it in this bag. So that's the first point. Like, it usually comes, when you buy in bulk, it usually comes either in a thin plastic bag or something like this. This is cardboard or paper. It's not going to last. It's going to get moisture in there, or animals could easily bite through this, so it's not going to last the whole time, or as long as I would need it if I want to preserve it for a longer period of time. So we put it in buckets. Now, in order to bucket your grain or your dried goods, there are four main things you need. Of course, the first one is buckets. Now, in 5-gallon bucket, you can hold about 25 pounds, 25 to 30 pounds of most grains. It depends on the size of the grain, if it's really big or small, how it compacts down. But let's say 25 pounds is easy, fits in one of these, often a little bit more. Another size you might that you might readily find would be a 2-gallon size, 2-gallon, 5-gallon. Those are all pretty easy to find sizes. They also have 3 gallons and 7 gallons. But I find the 7 gallons are going to be super heavy and hard for me to carry around. So my preferred buckets are 2 gallons or 5 gallons. The next thing you're going to need are lids, and there are several different lids to consider depending on how you're keeping your food or how long you want to keep it for. So one of the first ones that I love is this. This is a Gamma lid. It is a spin top, so it spins off. You put this, it has a nice rubber gasket. You put this on top of your bucket. You have to use a rubber mallet to get this on. It takes some muscle and some grit to get it on there, but once it's on, it will not come off. So you put this ring on, this spins right in. I have one here, I can show you, but it's just real easy, come off, get your food. This I use in my kitchen. This is for if you want something to be sealed really well, but I'm still going to be getting into it often, every day, every week for sure. So all the buckets that I use, like to make my flours, I have my grains that I use all the time in my kitchen, they have Gamma lids. So that's the first one. Another one that you may find are these. These are often called paint lids. These are not necessarily food grade. They're really flimsy, easy to get on and off. And what situation you might use this for is if you're putting, I don't know, if you're going to get into a bucket really, really soon, and it doesn't really need to be airtight necessarily. So like I might put this on a bucket if I have pre-packaged goods, like already, like I don't know, pasta or something that I didn't take out of its package, just in a 5-gallon bucket and put this on. Easy to get on and off, very easy as compared to the next lid, which is this. This is the lid you're probably going to use if you want it to last for a really long time. It's going to seal it. This also has, it's hard to see, but a white rubber gasket in there. So that's going to help keep it airtight. And then these you have to use a rubber mallet to get it on. Get it on really secure. And then most of them have a little tear tab, so you'll know when it's been opened. You can reuse these, but this is for a bucket you're not going to be getting into for a while. So for most of the things that I put up in storage for 3 months or longer, I'm going to be using one of these. Anything in my kitchen that I'm getting into weekly, I'll be using a Gamma lid. And then for odd other things, I may use this. This is, again, not going to be airtight. There's no gasket, and it's really flimsy, so it'd be easier for critters to eat right through. So just keep that in mind when you are choosing your lids. This is usually what you're going to get. The next thing you're going to need to bucket is an opener. So you're going to need to open your buckets with. There's a plastic model that you can find, and then there are metal models. the metal models will not break as easily as these plastic ones. So I have heard of other people trying to open their buckets and these just completely break on them. So go ahead and invest in, these are a little more expensive, invest in a nice metal one that should last you through all your bucketing needs. The last tool you're really going to need to do this is definitely a rubber mallet to get the lids on. And like I said, for this one, it takes some strength to get this on and it will not come off. This part will not come off, although this one will last for a long time. So those are the 4 main things you need to get going with your bucketing. The next thing you have to decide on is your preservation method. Are you going to use dry ice? Are you going to use a Mylar bag, oxygen absorbers? These are just some things to consider. You could just put your grain right in the bucket and put the lid on as well and do that. It will last longer if you use one of these preservation methods. So we're going to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of these two, and then we'll get going and I'll show you how we do it. So the pro, I've got dry ice over here and I'm going to be using dry ice today. It's in a cooler over here. The pro with dry ice is that it's really cheap. You can get it for sometimes $1 a pound. You only need about a couple ounces, 2 to 4 ounces per bucket, at a minimum 2 ounces per bucket. So depending how many buckets you need, that's how many ounces you would buy or how many pounds you would buy, and then you break it into pieces, put a little bit in each bucket. The cons about this, which you're going to see, is once you put the dry ice in there, what it does is it pushes the oxygen out, which is good, right? But that means you're going to put the lid on, you're going to hammer it down most of the way and leave a little spot open. And you may even use your opener. Sometimes you hammer it all the way and you're going to have to burp your lid several times. You're going to have to kind of like let a little air out as it's pushing it up. The lid will actually come up and just like dome out. You have to let out the gas as it's coming out. And then when it stops coming up, you can do your final, you can burp it one more time. So it could take some more time to do this. So that's kind of it, but it's cheaper, definitely cheaper than the Mylar bags. Mylar bags, let's look at them. So you can get, this is only a 1 gallon, you can get 5-gallon Mylar bags. You stick it inside your 5-gallon bucket, and then you put your grain inside the bag. Then you seal it most of the way, and then you have your oxygen absorbers you have to stick in. You need at least 2,000 cc of your oxygen absorber per 5-gallon bucket here. But so the pros with Mylar bags is there's absolutely no smell. So even in a bucket where you have that dry ice in there, if you're keeping your buckets in a barn or somewhere where there's lots of animals or critters that might smell something even through the plastic, mice can bite through plastic. They can gnaw their way right through. So this is just an added layer of smell protection so that you're not going to have any rodents in there, hopefully. And then the oxygen absorber is really going to keep it tight. One of the cons for this is it is more expensive. So you can easily pay for a 5-gallon Mylar bag, you could easily pay anywhere between $1 to $2.50 per bag, plus an oxygen absorber. So that's going to run you, you usually get them in packs of 10, so you have to do 10 buckets at a time, because if you open this and just take one out and leave the rest open, you're going to ruin the rest of them because they're all absorbing oxygen. You have to keep them sealed until ready to use. So it's a little tricky for that as well. Also, one of the cons is your bucket is going to hold less. It's not going to hold as much because you've got all this extra space of the Mylar bag taking up that room, and then plus you have to leave room in the top to seal it, so it's just not going to hold as much. So if you don't have a lot of room to store your buckets and you want to fit the most in your buckets, you might do dry ice. But if you're concerned for really long-term storage, like 30 to 50 years or whatever, then you might want to go Mylar bags. So there are trade-offs with both of them. Today I'm doing dry ice because that's the way I prefer to do it. And eventually I would like to have a good assortment of each. So I have some really long-term storage, and then long-term and super long-term storage, and then of course the stuff in my kitchen that I use all the time. All right, so there are a couple other things that you may need to do this. Let's see. You're going to need tongs. If you're using dry ice, you cannot touch it with your hands. You're going to need tongs, Some people say you might need a couple like paper plates with no coating on them to put one, and just so the food doesn't touch the dry ice. It can burn the food, whatever is actually touching the dry ice, it may burn it. So it's kind of up to you if you want to use a paper plate and go that route, or you can put the dry ice directly in your bucket, and it may burn a few kernels of grain, but if that's a problem, you can just pull those out later when you actually use it. So let's get started. I should mention at the beginning, when I get these buckets, I do go ahead and either rinse them out or spray them down with thieves cleaner or something and wipe them out, make sure they're completely dry. But often they have dust and other things from the store that you really don't. So I'm gonna take my organic millet that I got from Azure, and that just pulled right off. Super easy to open. I'm gonna pour it in here. Actually, let me get my dry ice going. So I'll do the paper plate method for you guys. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna put dry ice in here and then put the one paper plate on top. You're gonna put just a couple of ounces of dry ice in here. Remember, do not touch it with your hands, it will burn you. You can find dry ice at most grocery stores. Price Cutter has them, or Hy-Vee. Okay, that's fine. You just need a couple of ounces in here. Okay, and then kind of get it in the middle. Put your paper plate on top. Then we're going to pick up our millet. I'm going to stand up this part and just pour it in. See, there's still plenty of room in the top here. Plenty of room. So the next thing you're going to do is, if you don't want the dry ice to touch your thing at all, anything at all, put a paper plate and put a little bit more, just a little bit, dry ice on the top. I have learned the hard way, if you put too much dry ice in here, you will be letting burping it, letting the gas out little by little for a long time. So do not put too much in, okay? We are going to, the next step is to seal it. And you're gonna have to give it some good force. Okay, so I sealed it almost all the way. This part is not quite sealed. I can press down, I can hear the air coming out. So now it's gonna start pushing out the oxygen, which is great. Some people say when the floor is no longer cold underneath, then you'll know that's when it's done and you can seal it all the way. I kind of go by when it stops pushing up continuously, the lid. Now, don't throw out your bag or whatever it came with. You need to mark this. So there's 4 steps. You need to bucket it, you need to seal it, you need to label it, because otherwise you will forget what it is. You could always use just a marker and write on it. But I found a better way is if it comes with a nice label, either peel it off. Oops, that one's tearing, so I'll probably cut it off. And then on the back of these, it comes with directions. It's kind of hard to see in the glare, but it comes with directions. It has the nutritional facts on this bag, and it has directions. So I'm going to cut this off too and tape it right on here, like I did. You can see this. Close this up. Like I did with this bucket over here. So this is actually alfalfa pellets for using in the garden, but I taped the label, I took it off, and then I put the instructions over here, exactly what's in it, and I just taped it onto here. So I can always reuse this bucket, just pull this off if I want to put something else in. And it's nice that I already have the directions. So if your packaging comes with directions, don't throw it out. No need to rewrite that. Just put it on. So I'm going to quickly show you how to burp this. It's really easy. And I left it open pretty well, but you're just going to kind of take your thing and You might even be able to hear a hiss. Let me actually get it down all the way for you. And as it's coming up, you can just open it a little bit. You'll hear a little bit of a hiss with the air, the oxygen coming out. And just keep going until it's done. So that is how I do it. There are definitely many different ways to do this. That's just how I do it. So if you have any questions, let me know. You can post them in the comments below. Let me know your questions. Yeah, it's really, really easy. I've been doing I do a lot of the dry ice. This is how my parents did it when they were bucketing wheat many years ago. But I definitely see the benefits of using different methods for different periods of storage. And definitely if you're keeping stuff in a barn or in a really humid environment, then I would probably definitely go with the Mylar bags, because that's going to keep everything the driest and the safest for the longest amount of time. But let me know if you have any questions, and I hope this helped, and I will see you guys later.